Morning, everyone. I'm Misha Lawson, Membership Services Coordinator for the Ohio Fire Chiefs Association. Thank you for joining us for this morning's refresher webinar on the Emergency Response System presented by the State Coordinator, Retired Chief Bill Hauck. Now I'll turn it over to him.
Good morning, everyone. We have been asked to do a refresher on the emergency response systems. So we'll cover kind of updates on some recent activities or some changes that we've had going on, as well as the an overview of the response system itself for those of you that may not be familiar. So just a quick objective. The system went live in 2002. It was a result of, if anybody remembers, the 1990 Shady Side flooding, where in Southeast Ohio, the jurisdictions down there were overwhelmed and didn't have enough resources. So the board of the Ohio Fire Chiefs at the time wanted to create a system. It ended up taking a little bit of time to do it, but coordinated with state and local officials. And it's simplistic in nature and is meant to be an easy method for jurisdictions to obtain additional resources once they have overwhelmed their local mutual aid capabilities, whatever that system may be on a local level. That's not anything that we dictate through the response system. We have a great partnership with state agencies. First and foremost, the Department of Commerce with the State Fire Marshal's Office. The funding to maintain the system originates from them. It gets funneled up through Department of Public Safety, so we work closely with Ohio Emergency Management Agency and Ohio Homeland Security. We spend a lot of time with Ohio Emergency Management Agency helping large events in the State Emergency Operations Center, where we coordinate efforts with the State Fire Marshal's Office, who's the lead on Emergency Support Function 4. And Homeland Security helps provide IT support. We signed an MOU with Public Safety a number of years ago as we were making some platform changes. So the information that's in the State Emergency Response System is the property of the Ohio Fire Chiefs, but the Department of Public Safety and Ohio Homeland Security provide IT support for us. We also have been working on some projects with Ohio Division of EMS, Ohio Hospital Association, and Ohio Department of Health. So those are some other state agencies that we have good relationships with at the current time. Guiding principles for the response system. I mentioned earlier, it's just a simple method to immediately activate large quantities of resources, and it doesn't necessarily need to be large quantities. The resource in need may be something such as a specialized team collapse search and rescue or swift water search and rescue. So it doesn't necessarily need to be large quantities of resources. It's just when you need additional resources and don't have them, we can help provide them. It's not meant to replace any other plans, so it's meant to complement any other disaster plans that are already implemented, whether it's local, state, regional, national. And we say it's one system, whether it's for an immediate short-term duration or long-term assistance. And we will also talk about, even though the response system was not designed for out-of-state responses, we have been able to help facilitate some of those EMAC responses. We'll cover that a little bit later in the presentation. We have 4 central dispatch centers that rotate every 2 months. Columbus, Hamilton County, Metropolitan Emergency Communications Center, and Toledo Fire. Those transitions are relatively seamless. So when a central dispatch agency comes off as being primary, they then in turn become a backup. So if the central dispatch center at the time is experiencing their own major event, we can actually transfer the system to a backup dispatch center, so then in turn they become central dispatch centers. We I don't know that we're exactly here. We try to, in each of the 88 counties, we'd like to have at least one county coordinator. A lot of them, we have multiple county coordinators, and we rely on the county coordinators to oversee the data input for the county, and also help facilitate how the county will respond, which we'll cover a little bit later, and helps to provide training for departments and the dispatchers, and we'll also cover that a little bit later. If you don't know who your county coordinator is, we ask that you contact your regional coordinator, and we will have a map towards the end of the presentation that will show the regions and identify who the regional coordinators are. We also ask that each of the 88 counties have one designated primary point of contact. And the reason for that is when there is an activation, we're trying to reduce the workload on our central dispatch agency. So instead of having them call each agency in the county that's been activated, we will contact one dispatch center, primary point of contact for that county, and then have them implement their plan, however it may be. However that county has decided that they want to respond. So we ask that we don't dictate on anything on a local level. So we ask that each county develop their own system to respond, and this is normally coordinated through a chiefs association or some sort of an association that encompasses the entire county. We'll talk a little bit about this. You'll hear me mention a couple times. We have what we call a 50% rule. So we try not to call for any more than 50% of a specific resource. So for instance, if there's 20 fire engines in a county, we try not to call for any more than 10. We ask that the counties remember that so they don't commit any more than 50% of a specific resource. That way they're able to respond to their own local emergencies while there's a state emergency going on. So these units can respond individually. So a department can send a truck with personnel, could be a part of a strike force or strike team, and staffing can come from more than one department. And we'll also talk a little bit about that later, but Ohio Revised Code allows us to utilize another department to staff a resource from a different department. So you might be able to provide an engine and two people, and maybe your neighboring department can provide two more people, however the case may be. And here again, this system is up to you as a county, and then even more specifically as an individual agency. This is just a quick snapshot from a couple months ago, and you can see the resources that were listed in the response system. When I get out and talk to especially our state counterparts or our state agencies that we have relationships with, I brag a lot on the fact that there's well over $1 billion worth of resources that have committed to be used when there's a major event going on somewhere else in the state. Now, that doesn't mean that at this point in time we could draw on 847 engines, because remember, we have that 50% rule, and sometimes those agencies will have their own emergency going on and won't be able to respond at the time. But that shows you the commitment that we have for the response system because of the local resources that have been committed to be used. These are some of our last three most recent activations. You can see we had back in February of this year, there was a lake freighter that was on fire with Oregon Fire Department, and the area utilized a lot of their resources. So we didn't actually respond to the incident itself. We helped backfill a local firehouse with 2 tenders and 1 fire engine. The August 2018 incident was we helped with providing a hazmat team for a hazardous material incident in Ross County Correctional Facility. And then June of 2018, we assisted Portsmouth Fire Department with providing 250,000 gallons of water when they had an issue with their municipal water system. We helped provide water for a local medical facility so they could continue with their cooling operations, and they could their normal operations they were able to continue with. So this, and that was an extended, a 64-hour period. And we'll talk a little bit about that, about short-term versus long-term responses. So if you're not, and you want to learn how to be part of the system, first and foremost, like we mentioned earlier, is get to know your county coordinator and let him or her know what available units you have that you would like to enter into the response system. If you want to have access to the system and get notifications and be able to follow responses and get updates through Ohio Homeland Security, you need to register with the Communication and Information Management System. That's the part of the IT support that we have from Homeland Security is because of security reasons, the emergency response system is housed behind the SIMS portal. And I will actually, part of this, towards the end of the presentation, there will be a link on how to access SIMS and to apply for an account. It's relatively easy. They're very receptive. You should be able to get everything coordinated within a day or two, depending on when you submit the request. This is changed. We'll talk a little bit about this. The sign-in for the Communication Information Management System has changed. So this is what the screen looks like. So you see where to hit the button to sign in if you have an existing account. If you do not have an account, right below that, you hit that blue button to sign up, and it will take you to a simplistic page to enter your information to apply for a SIMS account. Once you log in, this is part of what's changed. The login through public safety, all of their separate programs that they had different logins and passwords, and they wanted to combine everything to the identity manager system that they have. Some of you may have already had an identity manager login and password, and if that's the case, you should be able to use that to log into SIMS now. There is a contact for IT support, and here again, they've been very receptive to working through any of those issues as they've transitioned into Identity Manager. Once you log in, you get through Identity Manager, and you'll see off to the left-hand side of the screen where it says Fire ERP. We're in the process of changing, I should have mentioned earlier, initially the response system was designated as the emergency response plan. A few years ago, the board of the Ohio Fire Chiefs decided it was more than a plan, and it was actually a full-fledged system. So we're in the process of changing all of our information to show as ERS. But once you click on that button there, it will take you to a home page. If there is an activation or if it's part of a monthly test, we'll normally have a message up there to explain what's going on. And what we try to do is during each monthly communication test, we hope to get at least one agency from each county to check in with us on Ecom 20. So that's a MARCS talk group. And we'll talk a little bit more about that too. We utilize MARCS not so much for command and control, but the coordinators will utilize MARCS to help with the activation and kind of communicate in the background. So I said earlier, we'll talk a little bit about EMAC. So the difference between IMAC and EMAC, IMAC is the Intrastate Mutual Aid Compact. That's what allows us, along with Ohio Revised Code 9.60, that's what allows an entity in Ohio to respond to another entity in Ohio. This gives them the protection through the revised code. Will also allow them, this is what also allows us to utilize personnel from other agencies to form a response or specialized teams if we need to. EMAC is the Emergency Management Assistance Compact. Includes the entire nation and all the territories, and it's what it allows us to respond out of state. So if we've seen in the last few years hurricanes hitting Texas and Florida and the Carolinas, and when those states have overwhelmed their resources, they can put a request out that goes out nationwide for assistance. If this gives us, this formalizes a reimbursement policy, gives us liability protection and license reciprocity. If there are any questions, the I have some information, but you can also go through Phil Johnson or Holly Welch at Ohio EMA, and they can give you information specific to EMAC. This explains it a little bit more in detail. And so an employee of a state agency or a political subdivision may be deployed by the Ohio EMA regarding an EMAC mission request. Two things that are needed is an intergovernmental agreement. This needs to be completed by each agency that will be potentially responding. This is what formalizes the relationship between Ohio EMA and that agency, and definitely what helps formalize that reimbursement process. So if there are multiple agencies that make up a team, such as a collapse search and rescue team or a swift water search and rescue team, each one of those agencies that are participating that will be reimbursed need to complete an intergovernmental agreement. And this can be done on an annual basis. So the agreements that we signed today will be in effect through December 31st of 2019. And that makes it a little bit simpler because history has kind of shown us, it seems like those EMAC requests come out late on a Friday night or overnight, and it actually takes a signature from a high-ranking elected official for that agency, whether it's a township trustee or city manager or mayor, whatever the system is that your jurisdiction has, that person will need to sign the intergovernmental agreement. So we've been trying to do those for the resources that feel that they are interested in a potential EMAC response. We try to get them to fill out the intergovernmental agreements ahead of time. That's one less step that they will need to complete if there is a request for assistance. The other piece, and one of the most important pieces, is the mission ready package. And this is what puts a cost to your response. So it will cover, when the request comes in, it will have a length of time associated with it, 7 days, 10 days, 14 days, whatever the case may be, what they're looking for. So you put a cost to travel, you put a cost to the resource, you put a cost to your personnel. And Ohio EMA can help complete this mission ready package, answer some of the questions. The first time you complete it, I've been told it seems a little cumbersome. Once you've done it, I think it is a little bit easier. And we are actually working to have a breakout session, one or two possibly, at the conference this year with Ohio EMA, so we can this is one of the things I'd like to focus on, is what's needed. How do you determine the figures to put into that mission ready package? This will be specific to that specific request. It can't be, you can start ahead of time, but you need to have the particulars that come in from that request to complete your mission ready package. And the big thing to remember is you will only be reimbursed for what you can document. So this is not meant for you to make money. You basically are getting reimbursed for the costs that you have for your jurisdiction. So documentation is important as well. And then the other big thing to remember is, even if you've completed the intergovernmental agreement and you have a mission ready package that has been accepted by Ohio EMA, the next process is they will turn that over to the requesting state, and the requesting state will have to accept that package for you to be able to respond. So even though you may have the intergovernmental agreement signed and accepted, and you have a mission ready package completed and accepted, you still are not able to deploy until you're told to do so by Ohio EMA. And where the response system comes into this is we are nothing more than a conduit of information. So we can help pass that information out. We can help try to vet those resources potentially through the tax that we have. But the go ahead to respond is actually done so through Ohio EMA. So back to a normal intrastate response for us. If your county is requested to send resources for an event going on in Ohio, and you have access to SIMS, log into the website through SIMS, confirm that your county has been requested, the system will identify resources because it's done geographically, so by distance. We allow your county to adjust what resource or resources responds depending on your plan. And we'll talk a little bit about some of those options, but you don't have to send the resources that are identified through the emergency response system. The big important piece would be if let's say 5 Type 1 fire engines are requested, and you can provide those 5 Type fire engines, that's great. If you can't, then we just need to know how many you can. So if you can only respond with 3 of those, then in turn we will reach out and identify 2 others from a different county. And then importantly is follow whatever your procedures are for dispatching those appropriate resources. Like I said, they can be different from the ones that are identified through the response system. And then always remember that 50% rule. We don't want you to provide any more than 50% of a specific resource. That way you'll have the resource available for your own local emergencies. So when you're responding, we suggest you stay in contact with your home dispatch or department so they know that you're en route and when you arrive. Important to maintain accountability documentation, any type of costs that are associated, definitely your personnel, and then if possible, and it may not happen until you arrive at staging, but you may be able to gain radio contact with staging, and we will try to provide coordinators that can help with that piece of the response. So before you go, there will be a code word that is issued. It is done randomly through the response system. That is meant to provide a level of security depending on the incident. So if somebody shows up without the code word, that tells us that they haven't been deployed through the response system. We will leave it up to the incident commander for him or her to decide if they want to accept that resource. But it's up to them. I don't know that we've ever turned anybody away, and I'm not sure that I can remember we've had somebody show up without the code word also. So obviously, we want you to assemble your crew, know how to get to the staging area. If you have your own local communication plan while en route, so you can communicate with either your home county dispatcher or other resources responding from your county. We utilize marks for the coordinators. We realize that not everybody utilizes marks. You may or may not have access. That system may not be for everybody, but I will tell you that it has worked extremely well for our coordinators to communicate throughout the state. Obviously, we want you to have the appropriate personal gear and any necessities for maybe extended deployment, whatever they may be. While we will try to provide rehab services, that might be good to have some water and some nutritional bars on hand in case it's an extended event. And then, like we mentioned earlier, is you keep accurate records of your deployment, such as the 214, in case there is reimbursement. I believe EMAC, I'm sorry, allows for the first 8 hours of response is not billable. I don't believe we have ever had an event where somebody has initiated an invoice to submit to the requesting agency, but nonetheless, good to keep those accurate records in case there is a possibility of reimbursement. So once you're on the scene, we ask that you check in the staging. Get into the communication plan for that specific incident. So it may be different than the communication plan that you have while you're responding. You will most likely be provided an assignment. We ask that once you provide that assignment, you keep within your local protocol and certification levels. But once you provide that assignment, you check back in, let them know, let the incident commander know that assignment has been completed. You can ask for reassignment. You may be sent back to staging, And then when you are released, we ask that you check out officially through the staging manager. And here again, we'll talk a little bit about that, but we will provide coordinators that can help with documentation. We'd like to advocate some key points. First and foremost, stay within your certification and experience levels. We really advocate no freelancing, and understand that the assignments are based upon an incident action plan that the incident commander has created. So we ask that our resources that respond in stick to that assignment, that incident action plan as best they can. So the number to call for whatever the needs are, and I think people don't realize sometimes that as we did in Oregon back in February, not only do we have the resources and the personnel to help with the incident itself, when an area, region, and county is overwhelmed with the resources that are responding to that initial incident, we can help backfill those stations while they're tied up on the incident. So one number will get you fire, EMS, rescue, hazmat, any of the specialized teams. We can also, if an incident commander is having an unusual incident and maybe needs to be put in contact with a subject matter expert, we can reach out, and we've done that in the past, and actually have that a specific subject matter expert confer with the incident commander to help him or her make decisions for that incident. There should be information when you check in if your county's been activated. Some things that you can, information you can gather and then relay to the responding companies. We talk about two types of responses that we have. A scramble response is we want the equipment to get out quicker and expect to be deployed for a shorter period of time. Nobody has a stopwatch going to necessarily. These are not hard and fast rules necessarily. We just, if somebody has a scramble response, obviously they're in need of equipment or resources as quickly as we can get there. A standard response, we state, is it allows somebody to respond en route within 3 hours and expect to be deployed for up to 72 hours. I will tell you, in the incidents that we've had that have gone on for extended periods of time, we have not had I don't believe we have ever had a resource tied up for more than 24 hours. And I actually think it's quite less than that, because we will create operational periods and can rotate those pieces of equipment in and out. So we may be calling to set up a response for 2 or 3 operational periods in advance. You definitely want to know the staging area location. If there is an assigned Marks talk group, you want to find that out. If you've got Marks capabilities, you'll be able to communicate that way. And then obviously that code word, we want to make sure we relay to any of the companies that are responding. We ask that we don't do that over the radio, just so that code word is not broadcast out. So if you are the one hosting the event and you need some additional resources, and you make the call, so it can come from the incident commander, it can come from an EMA director, maybe it's coming from somebody who's overseeing operations, whoever, or the incident commander's liaison. But we will need some questions that Central Dispatch will ask. We need to know the name of the affected jurisdiction and the fire department, the agency that's calling, the name and rank of the caller, and callback numbers. Not uncommon for us to reach back out to obtain additional information, or we will definitely reach back out to let them know that the request has been filled. We'd like to find out who the incident commander is, the type of emergency, and really most importantly are the type and the numbers of the apparatuses needed. So we can identify, we can put that request in as the actor, or we can put that information in as the activation is being developed. We can't go with, we need a bunch of equipment. we need to have an idea of what type of equipment and how many, the numbers of equipment. Now, if you find out that additional equipment is needed, that's fine. You call back. Maybe it's a different resource, or you realize you need larger numbers. That's perfectly fine. And then a location of a staging area. And remember, we are bringing resources in from outside of your region, so they're unfamiliar with your area. So we ask for an easily identifiable staging area that will allow for easy ingress and egress. The Walmart at 123 Main Street, or the Walmart at Main Street and South Street. Whatever the case may be, we just need it to be a large, easily identifiable. And then obviously the type of response that you need. Scramble response, you need equipment there quicker, or a standard response, could take a little bit more time. And for the standard responses, we can actually help coordinate with the incident commander to make sure we've got those multiple operational periods covered. So what you will get, we will send regional coordinators, and first and foremost, they'll actually assist with the documentation of the emergency response system resources. We can help, and we have, identify other resources, local resources that have responded. And we can help with the expanding ICS structure if there's a need. We're not there necessarily to help out with ICS, but we actually have, you will be getting chief officers that are part of the regional coordinator system. So they can help if there's a need. They can help the incident commander with the ICS structure. Communications, Mark's personnel are notified during any of our activations. This way they can track tower usage, and if there's a need, there's delays or they're overwhelming the towers, they can create their magic and help free up some of those towers to improve communications. Depending on the event, we may send a BSSA unit or another type of a communication unit just to help establish local communications at that incident. And it actually has assisted us in the past too. It gives us a place to get in out of the elements to help with our documentation and potentially relay information to the incident commander. And then really a key part of it is remember to prepare for large amounts of resources that will be coming in. So what can you do for the system? If you want to participate, first and foremost, as I've mentioned earlier, know your county coordinator. If you're not sure who he or she is, you can once again go through your regional coordinator. They can put you in contact with a county coordinator. Make sure your information is up to date. I would always try, when I was a county coordinator, I would try on an annual basis to have our county chiefs review the information that they had in the response system. I came from a smaller county. It was a little bit easier for me. I had a pretty good idea when other agencies, other jurisdictions in the county added or deleted resources, but I still wanted to put it in front of the fire chief on an annual basis so he or she could approve the information that they had in there. An issue that we're having now too is, I think because of a turnover on our county dispatch level, we're finding incidences or like during activations where the county dispatch agency that is the primary point of contact is unaware of the system and untrained. We've actually had them ask who we were and what exactly we needed, what we were trying to accomplish. So we asked that, this is something that our county coordinators are trying to work through also with our regional coordinators, but as an individual agency, if you have the opportunity, you have a good relationship, try to talk with your county dispatch agency to make sure they're aware of what the response system is and what your local system is. If you're unaware who the agency is, you may be able to go through the response system to identify that, or here again, that may be a piece of information that your county coordinator can help provide. The other thing to remember, we had this recent transition to identity manager. It took place, I believe, in February. So if you've not transitioned from your previous SIMS account and log in to the ODPS identity manager system, you need to do that. that's what will allow you to have access to the system. And then the other big piece to that is make sure your personnel are trained and aware of what the response system is, so how they can respond if your agency has identified any activation. As a county, we suggest you develop a county response system, whether in either our county coordinator or regional coordinators, myself, could help kind of go through some of these systems. Whether it's an exit gate system, exactly how you're going to respond, like a leapfrog, and that's kind of the way we did it. So we would, in my county, when we identified resources were identified to respond, we would take the first resource, skip the second, take the third, skip the fourth, take the fifth. So we staggered the response. That way, we still had resources uniformly positioned around the county for any other local event. And then remember, multiple departments can contribute personnel or equipment to staff a specific resource. Some recent updates. The last year or so, Bill Shaw from Solon Fire Department was moved up to Assistant State Coordinator. Bill has been part of the response system since its inception, was Region 2 Coordinator, and now has, like I said, accepted Assistant State Coordinator position. So he's helping out with the management of the system. This most recent event or update, effective April 1st of this year, the Ohio response system will now be a method to initiate an OH track incident. So any of those agencies that are OH track users and has an event that you need to have an incident created, and OH track is was designed as a patient reunification software utilized by hospitals, but it actually has been some of the agencies have been able to utilize it out in the field to start tracking patients in mass casualties. So if you need an incident created, and if your region or county does not have a good process in place, you can call the 188 number and we can initiate an incident for you. If your county or region already has an established process, we suggest you utilize that process as you have in the past. We have trained all of our central dispatch agencies, and they will be reviewing and updating as they take over central dispatch. They will be getting refresher training on OH track as well as the emergency response system. So like I said, it's just meant to be a method, one method. It is not meant to replace anything that is already in process. This is another one of the examples of the great relationship we have with Ohio Department of Health, Ohio Division of EMS, and Ohio Hospital Association. We are also starting to rotate times of the monthly communication test that we do each month, the first Monday of the month, barring any holidays. So we want to catch, we're finding, as I mentioned earlier, that our county dispatch agencies are unfamiliar with the response system. So we're going to rotate those monthly test times around to catch all three work shifts, and hopefully that will improve the familiarity with the response system so we don't have those issues during an activation. We will also be implementing some, I'm calling them simplistic regional exercises on a quarterly, and this will basically be communication between the regional coordinators and the county coordinators, and then also reaching out to the county dispatch agencies. So this is the link to log into SIMS. Well, like I said, if you do not have an account, you can use this hyperlink and actually apply for an account. Or if you already have one, this will get you into the login screen that will take you to Identity Manager to actually get into SIMS and in turn get into the emergency response system. Were there any specific questions that anybody has? Something I didn't cover?
don't see any questions coming through right now.
Can you repeat?
There's no questions coming through.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Thank you.
Yeah.
Let me see if I can advance this. Oh. So this is the regions that we utilize, the same 8 Homeland Security planning regions that the state of Ohio has. So if you're unfamiliar, here again, if you're unfamiliar with who your county coordinator is, you find out obviously through this what region you're in, and then here are the coordinators that are associated with those regions. This information can also be obtained through the Ohio Fire Chief's website. Specifically, if you go, I think there's a couple ways to do it. You can go through when you log in, click on the emergency response system button that should have the most current list of regional coordinators there. So if you contact one of these regional coordinators, they should be able to put you in contact with your county coordinator. So thank you. Here is my contact information. If you have any issues, you can't get them answered on a local level, or you can't get a hold of your county or regional coordinator, if you're having an issue with SIMS, whatever the case may be, or if you need additional training, which most likely will either myself or the regional coordinators will get out. We love getting out so we can do county training sessions, whether it's a county chiefs association or county firefighter association, whatever the case may be, LAPC possibly. We can get out and help do some training, kind of do this overview and explain the system to them. So this is my contact information. Please feel free to contact me at any point whenever there's a need, and I will try to get back to you as soon as I can and help facilitate a solution to your problem. Thank you, everybody. That concludes the refresher for the emergency response system for today.